Hey everyone, Cleo here. It is Bookmas day 17 already, and today we'll be talking about the book to movie adaptations for 2019. If you want to see my thoughts on the book to movie adaptations for 2018, then check out my video from yesterday in which I discussed the ones that were applicable to me or that interested me. And so the same will happen for the ones for 2019. So I went through a couple of lists about books that were getting adapted in 2019, and then I will be discussing the ones that interest me out of those lists. So definitely go and check out some lists that you can find on the internet. It's very easy to look for them and see whether there are some more that maybe interest you. Now the first one that I will be mentioning is the Chaos Walking trilogy. So the first book out of this series, or I think it's just the first book. I'm a bit confused with the title because Chaos Walking is the name of the trilogy, but the first book is called The Knife of Never Letting Go, but so the movie is going to be called Chaos Walking, so I'm not sure whether they will be doing like the entire trilogy in one, which would be a nice change from like doing one book in three movies, so maybe, who knows. But in any case, I'm expecting it to just be the first one, maybe, I don't know. But so in any case, The Knife of Never Letting Go by Patrick Ness is getting adapted into a movie starring Daisy Ridley and Tom Holland. So based on the cast, I'm quite interested because I'm not entirely sure about this, because the concept of The Knife of Never Letting Go is you have this boy who grows up in a society in which there are just males and all of them can hear everybody's thoughts. So basically if you just go around with certain secrets in your head, they won't be secret for long because everybody can just hear every single time you're thinking about them. And so this has some very interesting implications for the rest of the story, of course, but at some point he goes out into a part of this world and there's silence there, and he meets a girl there, a girl who has somehow survived whatever happens to the females in this in this world. But so yeah, basically then an adventure ensues because people really want to get to this girl because, well, we never really find out in the beginning why. And so yeah, we basically have these two characters setting out on a quest together to kind of, I don't remember really where they're headed, but basically to get away from these people who are trying to get to her. But so yeah, I'm not sure about the whole concept of like mind reading and how it translates into a movie. I think it might have been a wise choice on the side of the Maze Runner to leave this part out. I know it's my biggest criticism of the Maze Runner trilogy that they left that part out of the movies. However, it'll probably have been a good call because it's also quite difficult to bring this to the screen. So I don't know what they will be doing with it in this movie. It definitely needs to play some part, I feel, because it's like the main part of the book, but I also felt like it really needed to be in the Maze Runner, and they ended up doing something with it without it using this, so who knows. But I'm expecting it to be an element in that movie, and I'll be very interested to see how they do it and what will be the reaction of the audience to it, because I just don't see it working, but who knows, maybe they can do something very good with it. In any case, the fact that Daisy Ridley and Tom Holland are starring really gives me some hope for the movie, because that means that it'll at least have a very strong cast. Now of course the age type of Daisy Ridley and Tom Holland does not fit in with, at least not with my experience of the book. I do feel like they were more like young adults, like they were like teens or something like that in the books. But maybe I'm mistaken there. But yeah, it'll not be the first time that this happens, and it usually gets done quite okay, so I'll let that one slide. Second one that I'll be talking about is The Goldfinch by Donna Tartt. Now, I've not read The Goldfinch by Donna Tartt, nor have I read any of Donna Tartt's books. I was really looking forward to reading it, but now I'm kind of hesitant. So I saw somebody's review in which they said that when reading The Secret History, they really felt like the book should have gone through a more rigorous editing process, and this is one of my major concerns about A Discovery of Witches, which I reread quite recently. And so I'm quite hesitant to go into The Goldfinch based off of that idea, because it's also a 900-page book, and if I'm also going to be feeling like it should have done with some editing, I'm going to be super disappointed. But so the idea behind The Goldfinch is quite interesting, and it touches upon like my native language a bit, so that's also something that can interest me. So the Goldfinch follows a character called Theo Decker, who lives in New York, and he survives a terrorist attack on the Metropolitan Museum of Modern Art, or just on the Met, I'm not entirely sure which one. And while surviving that attack, he somehow accidentally runs off with one of the paintings in there, and the story basically follows the guilt he has over that. Not really necessarily the guilt, but the fear he's constantly living in that the police will show up at his doorstep, take that painting away, or that he will somehow lose the painting or something like that. But so we follow him and how his sense of fear is constantly present in his life, but apparently also how he spirals more and more out of control. So it starts with his first theft in the in that museum, but then he starts cutting classes, he gets into more and more like criminal aspects of of life. Now I do definitely want to see the movie adaptation, and then I'll probably decide on the book, because I'm not sure that I want to start in on a 900-page book like that. I think a friend of mine read it, she absolutely loved it. So there's a good chance that I will also love it, but I'm still quite hesitant after hearing that The Secret History could do with some serious editing. I know a lot of people really love The Secret History, and I'm not saying anything against it because I haven't read it, but it just makes me feel hesitant to go into it knowing that there might be an editing problem, because that was one of the major concerns I had with rereading A Discovery of Witches. But so with The Discovery of Witches, of course, there was also the story that I didn't like, so or the character development that I didn't like. So maybe I can see past this flaw if it's just the editing that is a bit wonky. Now, the third one that is on there is Catch-22. I actually have that book. I went through this list earlier and I thought I didn't have any, and now I see it. So Catch-22, it should be somewhere here. Ah, there you are. Come. So, back, let's have my lighting adjust itself, yeah. So Catch-22 by Joseph Keller. Now, I know nothing about it. It says here as well, one of the great novels of the century. I think it is somewhat like commentary on society, but in all honesty, I'm not entirely sure. I just know it's one of the major novels out there, so I feel like I should be reading it. And since literary fiction is one of like my main genres, I really feel like I should be getting to Catch-22 at some point, so why not make it 2019 when the movie adaptation comes out. So as I've sometimes mentioned in some of my movies, in some of my videos, I prefer to go into my books quite blind, so I won't be looking up what Catch-22 is actually about. So yeah, I know nothing about it, but I will be happy to look into it in 2019 and get back to you guys about it. And then the next one that I have is another adaptation for Little Women by Louisa May Alcott. I actually also have this book I promise you I went through this list in advance. Alright, that was actually a lie. I do not owe Little Women, apparently. So, Little Women by Louisa May Alcott is just about a family, I don't know in which times they are living, but in which there are like, what, 5 daughters, or something like that, 6 maybe? And we follow their journey into adulthood, apparently, basically. So I've already seen the one that has like Kristen Dunst in it, and I cannot come up with a name. No, I really cannot come up with a name. Yeah, somebody else in it. And I like that one. Now, I've never really been attracted to the story, I guess, because it's just like centered around women trying to find a man, basically. And I know that I love Pride and Prejudice, and that's basically the same concept. but for some reason I've always been quite uninterested in the plot of Little Women, but I might actually get around to it because it is such a classic. But so the new movie adaptation will be starring Emma Watson and Meryl Streep and Timothée Chalamet. I've only looked like at a couple of the names in there, so there might be a lot of other big names on there, but so yeah. I'm very interested to see it. I like Timothée Chalamet a lot, and Meryl Streep is always great, of course, and Emma Watson is doing a fine job as well. So I'm definitely looking forward to another adaptation for this classic, and maybe that'll make me finally get around to reading the actual classic. But yeah, I'm not making any promises there. I did put like War and Peace on my 2019 list, so that's already a major classic. That will take me forever to finish. And then one of the final ones that I have noted down for 2019 is the movie adaptation for The Rosie Project by Graham Simpson, the other book that I actually have on my shelf, and this one I've actually already read. Now, The Rosie Project by Graham Simpson was a very nice and charming book. I absolutely adored it. It's basically about this guy who sees everything in like very rigorous patterns. Everything has to be logically explained or has to follow certain rules. He's very scientific about everything, and so he goes on a quest to find himself like the perfect woman based off a sort of like scientific formula. But then he encounters this totally chaotic woman who's totally not his type, called Rose, but the story develops from there. Now, I'm a bit hesitant about this movie, let me say. I really enjoyed the book, but I do think that it works fine as a book, and I'm not sure whether it works as a movie just because of the eccentricities of both characters, you know. I feel like like they are already extremes in a book, but I think visually seeing these extremes might make I hope you can hear this, and otherwise you're thinking why are you pausing, but like kind of destroying my sofa now. But so yeah, so visually seeing these extremes might just make it too extreme. I might just push it towards yeah, hey. Yeah, so that might just push it towards like parody or something like that, and this is not a parody. This is just it's just wonderful and charming and hilarious. So yeah, I hope that the movie will still manage to keep that tone in there and that it won't go overboard. But I definitely feel that there's a danger of that happening. And then I've also got The Nightingale in my list. Now, I have not read The Nightingale. I think it is by Kristen Hanna, and it is a story set in World War II following two sisters who live in France. One lives in the countryside, one lives in Paris, and we follow like their two different stories throughout this war experience. And so I'm supposing it shows like the two different paths that you can take, but in any case, I've heard it's a very good one. It's very much loved on BookTube, which means it's probably a literary fiction piece that is quite accessible, which is always a good one because it kind of breaks down the barrier that there's sometimes for people going into literary fiction. A lot of people always feel like it's very high, very elevated, a bit arrogance and things like that. So it's very nice when a literary fiction book can ensnare multiple readers and show that literary fiction does not have to be above your head, or doesn't have to be something that is like super that uses super difficult language, or that puts super complex plots in there or ideas in there that nobody else sees into them. So I like it's showing people, come on, literary fiction can indeed be something that is enjoyable for everybody. But so I have not read it. I hear it's quite a tearjerker as well at the ending. But so it had been on my radar for a couple of years, but now I've seen a couple of people on BookTube positively review it, and so I think I will definitely get around to it at some point because it's been there on my TBR for a while now, and the fact that people are actually positively reviewing it will mean that I will keep it on there, and I will probably get to it at some point. And then the final one that's in there is Wicked. Now, I didn't necessarily have any interest in reading the book. I saw the musical in London, and it was really one of the best musicals I've ever seen. Now, that being said, I really like musicals, so every musical I've seen I really like. But Wicked is the musical that I recommend to people. So when people ask me which musical they should go see in London, I always tell them Wicked. Just because my favorite one, Les Miserables, I feel is not for everyone. Versus Wicked is very much an accessible musical. So I'm really looking forward to the movie adaptation for Wicked. I actually don't know who will be starring in it. I hope some of the original cast will be there, because just Idina Menzel did such a wonderful job with the character, and Kristen Chenoweth as well. So actually it would be nice to have them in that, but I'm just fearful that they will just go for a much younger cast. But I mean, that doesn't mean that the much younger cast would like destroy the movie or anything like that. I would just like to see the original cast in there, but yeah. But so yeah, maybe I'll actually get around to reading the book. However, then I would also feel I have to read the original Wizard of Oz books, so that would be probably too much for my TBR. So I'll probably just watch the movie and not go with the book, just because I don't necessarily have an interest in the book. I feel like the musical was a good enough version of the story for me to have had it in that version, and not to need to go to the book. But so yeah, these are the books that will get adapted into movies in 2019 that have sparked an interest in me. I might have forgotten some, I might have not had some on the list that I was watching. Maybe some TV adaptations that were excluded from there. So if you know of any others that are coming out in 2019, definitely let me know, and I'll definitely keep an eye out for them if they interest me. I do see that I have like no major fantasy or something like that on there, which is bit of a weird one for me. Maybe like the days of like all the fantasy adaptations are over, or maybe I just overlooked them. So if you know of any, let me know. But so yeah, see you guys tomorrow. I think tomorrow... Yeah, tomorrow is quite a difficult one. Tomorrow I'm supposed to be showing you guys the books that I will be giving. Now, I don't want my family to know what I'm giving them yet. So what I will be doing is I will be like semi-describing them and showing you like the Christmas packaging in which I wrapped it. And so after Christmas I will be doing like an unpacking for these, showing you guys which books were actually in there, and then you can see whether you had the correct idea when you were watching this video, whether you were right about which books were actually in there. But so yeah, see you guys tomorrow with that video. Bye!